Hello, 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 and welcome to this month's amazing lineup on the Her Version Impact, expanding rapidly with over 300 YouTube videos, 60 female guest speakers, and over 40 impact panel guests. We are now on 6 different podcast platforms, including Spotify, iTunes, and SoundCloud. I am thrilled to have a female panel filled this month as we talk about emotional and mental health. The conversation around this topic will be broad and will guarantee to educate you on so many areas of your life. Join us as we dive deep into our personal journeys to improving our mental and emotional health and the challenges along the way. Her Version is a contemporary global stage, a platform created for bold storytelling, providing stories, tools, and advice on how to break free from life struggles and design your own vibrant life. For those of you that don't know me, I am your host, Sabrina Victoria. If you are new to this podcast, make sure you follow, like, subscribe, and share. Let's jump right in. From here, I would like to hand the mic over to Kimberly Cook.
Hey, so I'm from Australia, and I met the lovely Sabrina, and so I love being a part of this monthly get-together. I love meeting new people, and so I'm a self-love coach, and I've just released, or I'm just about to launch, a podcast called Let's Get Loud, and I've stopped being a storyteller, and I am now a story listener. So I invite people to come on my podcast and tell me their story of abuse. It doesn't matter what it is, and I give them a safe space to have this conversation with me. I try not to say too much, and I have people tell their story who are really comfortable telling their story. And just this last week, I've had 3 people come and who've never told their story before. And so I love that, and I love to be able to give someone that space and that safety, because back when I needed it, I never had that. I never had anybody that understood, and I never had anybody that would actually hear what I was saying and validate what I was saying. And I had wanted to do this podcast for almost 12 months, and I kept denying myself that because I was like, oh, who the fuck do I think I am to do that? And, who's going to listen to it? And all these self-doubt things. And it actually wasn't until the issue with Gabby Petito that I just decided, you know what, I am so, like, my pet hate is when people are so ignorant that they want to blame an emotional person, and the perpetrator is all like, yeah, hey, and there's this poor girl who's an absolute emotional mess, and just watching that stage where she was pulled over and then to find out what happened to her, that in that instant I decided that I'm going to do this podcast that had been eating away at me, and I felt that I really needed to do it. I didn't know how it was going to go. I've had about 10 amazing guests so far, and I love it, and I'm so glad that I made that choice to do it, because I think education is key for emotional abuse, because as Sabrina said, it's something that people don't see, so they don't know that it happens, and there's no proof. And I agree with her. One of the things about healing is I did the same as Sabrina. I was so engrossed in finding out and learning everything that I could about narcissism that I continued to forget about myself, which I did that for 15 years. And it wasn't until I also went, you know what, I'm going to stop. I've got to stop worrying about that narcissistic person, and I need to bring the focus back on me. And it wasn't until I did that's when, everything sort of came together. And so I'm very much about, abuse behind closed doors, whether it doesn't matter whether it's, sexual, alcohol abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse. and emotional abuse is one of the hardest things to prove that is going on. And I'm also a believer that sometimes we may not be mentally ill. We may be well, for me, I was emotionally ill, and when I stopped thinking that I was mental and mentally sick, but I was fully emotional sick, that's also when I started to heal, because that's when I was like, if I can fix my emotions of all this stuff that I've been carrying around for so long, my mental health will get better, which it did. And so my question is, how do you, how do you tell your story? And, when was the first time that you actually could acknowledge your story? Because I couldn't tell my story without feeling so much shame and embarrassment until I was like, well, what have I got to be shameful for or embarrassed about? It wasn't me. And so, yeah, my question is, like, at what moment did you feel that it was okay for yourself to tell your story without feeling that you couldn't? Jen?
So what I think what's really interesting about this is I thought I could confidently tell my story. Like when I was going through my coaching program is when I started to kind of do the work to figure out like what was going on. And I thought I knew what my story was. So I was like, I can tell this, whatever, like I know what's going on. But I think so busy pointing fingers at still other people, like this happened and this happened and this happened, that it wasn't until I really, it was a long time before I actually realized what my true story was. And it was when I fully accepted what my story was that I was like, oh, okay. So I think it ties back to that radical acceptance that we were talking about earlier, that it's a two-part answer, I guess, which is one, fully knowing what our story is, and two,
that root cause of the story.
Yeah, because for me, I was like, oh, like I'm walking somebody else's definition of success and like blah, blah, blah. These are all the things that are holding me back. But it wasn't until I fully embraced it, like, holy crap, I was the one holding myself back. And thankfully, I don't have a traumatic past. I'm not a victim of abuse. So I didn't have I don't want to say I didn't have as much radical healing to happen, but it did take me longer to realize what my story actually was. So I think there needs to be that inner work and that inner healing to truly like identify what all the different triggers are, what all those different things are that are holding us back, in order to, and then the acceptance. Like awareness is one thing, acceptance is a whole nother game. And acceptance doesn't mean being okay with it. It's just saying, here's what the situation is. I think, Christine, you had brought that up earlier, but it's like acceptance is just, here's the situation. Now what? And not resisting it. Yeah. So great question.
And I agree with you about the acknowledging, because what I find with, some of my clients is like, and I say to them, you feel that if you tell your story and let it go, then you're telling yourself that it never happened. And that's not true, because we hold this story of trauma or whatever happened because that's a way of self-punishing, and it's a way for us to remember what's happened. And there is nothing wrong with actually letting it go. And that can be a really hard thing for some people, is to let that story go and not feel that, oh, but if I let it go, then it means it didn't happen. No, it doesn't mean that. It just means that you've acknowledged and accepted and you've let it go, because emotional baggage is very, very heavy. And, and I got to 51. I was like, I don't want to live my life like that anymore. I can't. I've got to let it go. And now what can I do with my life? And when I let all that go, now look at all these amazing things that I'm doing. And because on the other side of fear is great shit, because I believe great stuff happens when you can free yourself from that. And but still, I still tell my story. It's still a part of who I am. And I love that answer, Jen.
So I just want to add one thing about like the letting it go. And then Ashley, I see you have your hand up, but it's like letting it go, to your point of like, it still happened. It's like acknowledging it, just it's releasing the weight of it. It's being able to talk about it without the emotional weight.
Yes.
Which is like, that's the trick. It's not that it never happened. It's fully embracing this is my story. I did the best I could given the situation. I'm just not going to let it weigh me down anymore. But Ashley.
Yeah. Ashley.
Yeah, thanks. So mine's a little bit different. So for me, growing up, I was always told, you know, like write in your journal, it'll feel good, get things out. And I was always like, if I write things down, it means they're real. So I would bottle it up and pretend that things never happen. And so with COVID, I found that I was going into a deeper hole and I was like, I need to figure this out. So I started writing stuff out and I was like, okay, it's okay to write it out. It is okay. It's going to feel good. It's going to suck in the beginning because let me tell you, when you write out your story, it takes a lot out of you. And then you realize what you've been through and how you've got from where you started to where you are now. And once I started writing things out and just getting it out of me, I felt so much lighter. And I was like, you know what? If I can get through that, I can get through this, and let's move forward and do some good things. And so for me, it was like, okay, how am I going to focus on getting through this and knowing that it's okay? And so for me, it was writing things out and getting through the shit and feeling it and really just feeling it and knowing that it's okay not to be okay, but to keep moving because you will get through it. We're all so strong. And I think it's so important that we just get out what we went through. And once I got through that, then I started thinking, okay, well, I know I'm not alone. So someone else needs to hear this. Someone else needs to have some platform or something to talk about it. And so Kimberly, like you, I went and started a podcast, but it took me 6 months to really do it because I had the self-talk of no one wants to hear me. Why would anyone listen to me? I don't have any credentials. Like, what am I doing? And then I was like, no, this makes me feel good and I feel better. And if I can help one person, I'm happy.
Absolutely.
Like, that's it. And yeah,
Absolutely.
so that's
because it's healing for us. It's healing for me. My heart goes warm. I mean, Marie was one of my my podcast guests, and you know, I love hearing people's stories because I know that some part of someone's story will always resonate for someone who needs to hear it, and that's the most important thing. And you know, my podcast is not about me. My podcast is about my guests who want to come in and share their story. And so I love that, Ashley. Like, and it's really empowering to just let that go and yeah, just keep pushing through no matter what. Yeah. Marie.
So the thing is metacognition. It's a psychology trick where you can separate yourself from your thoughts and your feelings. And just know, the thing that changed for me was knowing that that person isn't going to hurt me anymore. To know that I was safe in my space. To know that I was safe now. And that it's the thoughts, the intrusive thoughts from what happened is what was hurting me more than the situation. To know that that situation was over and that I was safe. That is what changed for me.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Sabrina, you're muted if you're talking to us.
I was wondering if Lisa had anything to add.
I did. I just wanted to, since we're talking about stories, a practice that I do in my all-day workshop, so it's kind of a lengthy practice, but it can be so helpful, is to write the story out from wearing these 3 different hats. And the first one is you write it with the intention of being the biggest victim that you can access within yourself, with everything that the world did wrong to you, every reason it sucked so bad, every shitty thing that this person made you go through. And you write the story out that way and feel every single emotion with no judgment on the feelings. And then you write it out a second time, which we do a little bit later after some other stuff in the workshop, where it's just the facts, no emotionality, just the bare bones skeleton facts of what took place. And then finally, the last time that we write it out, it's in dialogue with your higher self, your wisdom. And if the universe shows this,
I love that.
For me to go through, what would the message
be? I love that. That is great. Yes. Yes.
That's really great.
100%. I'm glad that we added that one in. That was great. Thank you, Lisa. So we are heading towards the end here. We have two more hosts. We have Maria up next.
Hi, I am Marie Martin. I am a certified Reiki master, and I am a transformation coach and recently a published author.
Yay! Yay. Congratulations.
Thank you. So, for me, every morning, like during the night, some people call it dreams, some people call it astral projection. Sometimes, you feel like you leave your body. For me, I definitely feel like I leave my body. And when I come back in the morning, it feels like it's slammed into my body. Like I just feel like I just wake up like crazy. Not like, not necessarily even a good feeling. Sometimes I wake up in a panic. I wonder if anyone has any suggestions on how to help ease that, to not feel so crazy in the morning.
I have a morning routine that I do, and it changes. I don't always have as much time in the morning, but on a good day, I will do a thought download. So I'll write for 15 minutes or 3 pages, whichever comes first, just like stream of consciousness, whatever's in my head. And then whatever comes up in that, I tap on for 5 or 10 minutes. And then I listen to a guided meditation. And so that is how I just start my day as many days of the week as I can. And I find that it helps me feel grounded, because I have that same thing where I wake up and I've got all this stuff going on in my head and I don't know, where to go first. So the journaling is really helpful, and so are the other mindfulness things, because it just helps relax the body. So those are my tricks, or my tools, I guess is a better
Thank you,
term.
Christine. Nicole?
Well, on the days where my toddler doesn't jump on top of me to wake me up, I know that can be a jolt back into your body as well. But what I do like to actually have a practice with him of mindfulness and breath work. So we have like snuggles, which again is grounding back into our bodies. So snuggling in and feeling, how am I feeling this morning? How is my body feeling? And breath work, breathing, just really coming into your breath again to bring that energy back into your body. And then I actually host an alignment activation call every single morning at 8:30 a.m. Central Time. Well, now it's 8:30 here. I'm in Costa Rica. And so we don't change time zones as the US goes back and forth. But and so we jump on this call every morning, and it's a group of people, whoever feels like showing up. And I allow this to download through Source and whatever Source wants to give us that day. So we kind of have a recap of the last 24 hours, things and energies that we might have been moving through. And we bring awareness to those things and acceptance of those things, as a couple of people have mentioned. Okay, so this is what's happened. And now if we are to empty out and listen to Source, what does Source want us to do today? So we come into that energy and we feel into, sometimes we ended up doing a guided movement. Sometimes I end up channeling a full-on journey where we may go into the astral realms again. And other times it's a dance. Other times it's reading from different card decks that I have. We just kind of let Source take the wheel for a little while. And I think that's kind of important to kind of bridge those two worlds between astral dream world, subconscious, unconscious, into bringing that into your day. And how are you going to start moving through your day with this as well? So I don't know if you want to attend to this question that's popped up on the screen.
Not really a question. It's just a statement that she is very tearful. Rewatch this with her 19-year-old daughter later. So much helpful tools to put into use. So this is beautiful that she feels like she has some great information that she can take.
It's amazing.
Anyone else? Christine?
Oh no, I'm just the comment made me teary. So I mean, that's what you want. Like, that's the hope every time you do something like this, is that the information that we share is reaching someone who needs it and is going to help them take whatever step they're ready to take forward. So thank you so much for that comment, because that's, I think for all of us, like That's really what we want, is to just feel like we are helping someone else.
Susan.
Thank you. I wanted to add to that, Christine, the way you worded that was wonderful, because we really do have experiences and tools that we use that we don't realize other people don't do these things. I think, well, everybody knows that. They don't know that. They don't know about personal development and personal growth. And I'm working with a few people that they have not really taken the time to work on themselves, and that's where all of this comes from. And to answer your question, Marie, is that, and it's Maria? Marie. Thank you. To answer your question, Marie, I wake up and I follow Hal Elrod's Miracle Morning, where I wake up in gratitude. So I say I do a lot of thank yous all day, but when I wake up, it's okay. What am I so grateful for right now? And sometimes that grounds me right away in the morning, and go into a little meditation, and then what do I want my day to look like? So just to put those, and you could do those very quickly, or you could do them if you have more time, but everyone could do a few minutes of each in the morning, and it really just changes your whole outlook on the day. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Lisa?
I was just going to throw in, since you asked about grounding practices, one of my podcast guests recently talked about elephant feet and dragon tail, which I had never heard before. That's so cool. Anytime that you need grounding, just focus on the bottom of your body and imagine that your feet are like big, heavy, clunky elephant feet as you walk around your house, and then to imagine a big, heavy dragon tail extending from the base of your spine. I thought that was really cool, because I have those moments you're talking about where it's like, oh, I'm up there, and it just sort of pulls you down into your body.
Thank you, Lisa. Ashley?
So for me, I do similar morning routine. Mine's kind of opposite as Christina's. If I'm feeling like really anxious or just needing something, I start with a meditation. I have an app called Headspace, and they have great, I don't know what you want to call them, sessions, where you can do like 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. So it kind of depends what you need. And then after I do that, then I'll get out my journal, and I'll write like things I'm grateful for, how I want the day to go, and what is important in that day. Because a lot of times we're so busy doing so many things, and if we have kids, we're taking care of them. And we forget what's actually important for that day. So if you have like 3 things you really need to get done, if you write them out, then they're on the top of the head. If you're like running around like crazy person, it's really hard to remember what we have to do. So I find that once I do that, and then I finish my journal entry with something I'm grateful for and that I want to focus on. So the gratitude piece is huge. I find if I don't do my morning routine, totally throws off my day. Even if I do a piece of it, like if I start with meditation and I don't have time for the journaling, I'll do the journaling later, because I find once I meditate, I actually open up all my feelings so that I can write them out. Whereas if I write first, I get stuck and I'm like, what do I put? And so I find doing the meditation first really helps me.
Thank you, Ashley.
I love that. I do want to add one more comment before we move over to Ashley. This doesn't exactly answer your question, Marie, but one of the things that I do is I like pat myself on the back all day. It's starting really early in the morning. So like little tiny things that I do, as simple as making my bed, I literally say out loud many times, always to myself, but many times even out loud. But I'll turn around, I'll look at my bed and how amazing it looks, and I'll say, yes, girl. You know, I'll make myself a beautiful pink, gorgeous tone smoothie, and I'll be like, yes, girl. It's really important to make sure that there aren't other people in our lives that are patting us on the back for all of the amazing things that we do all day, every day. So a lot of times we have to be our own cheerleader. We have to give grace to ourselves and say, hey, listen, we got some shit going on in our lives, but we are freaking getting shit done. It might not be exactly the way that you're picturing it or your blueprint of what you exactly wanted, but there are so many things in your life that you are doing right. And instead of just going along being like, well, that's just part of life, you have to acknowledge yourself and acknowledge the fact that you are getting up and you are making your bed. You are getting up and doing that walk. You are getting up and making that smoothie. You are getting your kids out to school on time, to the school bus, or are driving them to the school on time. There are people in this world that are not doing that, And so it's so important to acknowledge yourself for the things that you think are just like part of being adult. You are rising above and you are doing things in your life to be proud of. So throw out some yes girls throughout your day and acknowledge yourself for how amazing you are and the things that you're accomplishing in your life. With that, I'd like to hand the mic over to Ashley, who's our last host.
Thanks so much, Sabrina. I'm really grateful to be a part of this. This has been really awesome to sit and listen to all you wonderful ladies, and I hope that everyone who's listening has learned something. It sounds like at least someone has, so that's great. So I'm Ashley. I'm from Canada, and I have a podcast called In Tune with Yourself. And I have been really working on myself in the last 2 years, really since COVID happened. It kind of hit me really hard, as I said before. My question to the group is, for people who are just starting to work on their personal development or figuring out their story or however they want to start to grow and get out of maybe the funk they're in, what would you recommend is tools to start? Like, what would you say would be the easiest way to start? Because sometimes it can feel really overwhelming if you're like, I got to work on myself. What am I going to do? How do I start? Where do I even go? So I think if we can provide, especially at the end, some tips and tools that could help people start and go from there. Let's start with Jen.
So I love this question because it also piggybacks back on what my suggestion is piggybacks on what Sabrina was just talking about with like the yes girl thing. And for a lot of my clients, I have a lot of high achievers who struggle to celebrate themselves. And for them, what they want to start working on is really that, like, they have a inflated self of confidence, but they really question themselves and everything that they do. So one of the tips and tools that I give them is to keep a celebration journal. So it's a combination. Typically, I recommend it as a combination journal where they write down every day 1 or 2 things that they're grateful for and 1 or 2 things that they're proud of themselves for.
I like that.
And when you start into this journey of self-development, at least for a lot of my clients who their expectations are so high and they're constantly like missing that mark, it's just giving yourself permission to recognize it. So kind of like Sabrina's yes girl, but it's getting it on paper to make it real. Because if it's just circling in our head, it's like that negative self-talk kicks in. So I think it helps with that awareness. So definitely celebration journal, and then just being aware of what you want to work on and kind of focusing and giving yourself permission. So thank you.
I love that. Celebrating the little wins. I've learned that is huge. Even if it, like Sabrina said, even if it's making your bread, some people don't do that. So it's getting down to the little bits and seeing what helps. And it actually feels really good. It's like when you go stand in the mirror and you say a nice thing about yourself, like, oh, you look beautiful today. Like, that changes your mood. Even if you don't believe it, just saying it is like instant, like it just gets you and you're like, okay, yeah, I can't help but smile. And then you move on with your day. So it's great.
Yeah. And the gratitude that everybody was talking about earlier, when I was in my lowest of lows at work, when I was lost and I felt like I was completely alone and navigating this terrible corporate job, and I wasn't willing to accept all the help or acknowledge all the help that was in support that was being given to me. And it was this celebration gratitude journal that really helped me acknowledge that I wasn't alone. So when we think of mental and emotional health, to tie this all together, it's allowing ourselves that safe space, whether it's a journal or a person. It's find somebody or something that can help support you through this journal. And my dog's about to bark, so I'm going to let somebody else talk now.
Let's go with Kimberly.
Yeah, I agree with Jen. I think it's I completely forgot what I was going to say now. Is letting go, is actually writing down, what do I need to let go of? And because this is how we unlearn. Because when we're aware of what we need to let go of, we can start unlearning that process of okay, so if I can let go of that, one of the things with my daughter, she gets very her anxiety, and she can lose her shit about something really, really small, and I'll just be like, but what difference does it make? Even my husband, when he's a truck driver, and he can get quite antsy when cars pull in front of him or do something, and he always says I'm on his shoulder, because I always say to him, you just don't know what sort of day someone else is having, and you don't know if they're just driving home from the hospital and they've just lost their wife, or they've just lost their child, or and does it really matter? Can you why do you have to get so upset? And sometimes he actually thinks that I'm really unemotional. And it's not that I am. It's just that I don't hold on to stuff that he tends to hold on to, or even my daughter, because and I used to, but now I just know, it's not worth it. Is it going to be the detrimental of your day? Is it, what part of your day is it going to ruin? So I'm all about sort of like working out what you need to let go, whether it's and start small. And then when you can start small, that's when you can really start to unlearn these bad habits of putting these high expectations of yourself and thinking that the world is going to be perfect, because the world is not.
Yeah, I agree with you. I just saw Kim had said that hearing all the stories shared today reminds me that the trials of life are universal. It's a great reminder that I'm not alone. And Kim, you're not.
You're not
We're all
alone.
here. People deal with everything. So yeah.
Yeah.
I think Nicole was next. If you had something to say, Nicole.
Yeah, I think when we're first on this journey of self-development, it's really important to take a look at your inner circle and take a look at who you're surrounded by, who is influencing your thoughts and your energy, and do a cleanup there. if it's not people who are really supporting you and lifting you up, inspiring you and motivating you and supporting you, then X them out, set those boundaries, or just, remove them from the inner circle, and then find people to put inside that circle to be with who are a community that is going to support and uplift you. And that's like, again, with my morning alignment activations, with my universal abundance community, that's where I want to spend my whole day. I would just jump in those chats all day long, because it's always people bringing in their positivity. And even when someone comes in with, hey, this is what I'm dealing with today, it's an entire community of support to say, awesome. Okay. Now that you have that awareness, now that you've had that acceptance, what can we do to move forward and through this? Or, how are we going to deal with this and help you come up with other ways, instead of just being more negative energy to help you wallow in that and cause more drama and bring up the denser emotions on the spectrum to feed that train, as Lisa was saying earlier. Instead, what can we do to have an inner circle of people who are going to help us go, ooh, you know what? I have lots of tools in my box to shift this in the other direction.
Yeah, that's actually a great point, because I've learned about the circle of 5, and it's the 5 people who are in your circle. And it's okay if you have people who you go to and talk to and they're your friends or your family, but the people around you who can uplift you, because I had a circle and for my podcast, and I was talking about it and they weren't excited. They didn't jack me up. So then I found people who would, and I was like, yes, I can do this, and it makes a huge difference. And you don't have to fully cut those people out of your life. Just maybe don't share everything with them, or the exciting things, have the people you want to talk to and that aren't going to just tell you to leave or whatever, the positive things. It makes a huge difference to have that circle of 5. I think Susan was next.
Yeah, thanks. I was reminded of the quote, you can't change the people around you, but you could change the people around you.
Yeah.
And it's and I love that, because it's exactly what you're saying is that we cannot change who other people are, but we could stop and look at how they're influencing us and get past the guilt and putting up that boundary. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll take Jen and then Christine.
I just wanted to touch on both Nicole and Ashley, your idea of that circle. And Ashley, I like how you kind of narrowed it down further to say circle of 5, but an exercise, if people are looking for an actual tool, if the circle of 5 doesn't resonate, I like using a 1-inch box where you literally draw a 1-inch box and it's very small on your paper. And the names inside are the names of the people whose opinions truly matter and influence you in a positive way. And when you only give yourself a box and you don't cheat, it's very impactful to see who actually makes it inside that sacred box and who's on the outside. And the trick is to find people who align and support you in your core values.
I love that.
So whether it's a circle of 5 or a 1-inch box where you write microscopic, it is really important to get that on paper to understand who is your network.
So I think about for somebody that's really just kind of getting started with all of this, I think it can be really intimidating. I know, like, in my brain, I'm like, oh, I've got to do this, I've got to do this, I've got to do this. And then sometimes I try something and it doesn't work. And so then my brain says, oh, it's not working, forget it. And so I think it's really important to start small and to build up that self-trust, because so often when we're in this place where we feel like we need to make a change, we've lost our self-trust because we've like allowed other people to talk over our feelings, or we've done things that we were supposed to do because we were supposed to do them, not because we wanted to, or because that was what really fed our souls. So I think, like, start small and think about, in terms of like that circle of 5 or that network. For sometimes people feel really alone and they look around their world and they think there's nobody that's going to help me do that. So then those online communities are really important, or find a great podcast that really inspires you that you can listen to on your way to work or while you're making dinner, or like find those little things that are going to start to shift your brain, or do a meditation, a 5-minute meditation, or like some great YouTube inspirational video, or listen to something on her version, or like just start to fit things into the little spaces in your life that are going to just get your brain moving and thinking, and start questioning everything that you've thought about before. And also, like, how can you, going back to like those moments of joy, how can you work those moments of joy into your life? Like, if it's just sitting with your cup of coffee in the morning for 5 or 10 minutes and just luxuriating in that, or getting up 10 minutes early to listen to a meditation or something inspirational, or maybe there's an inspirational book that you want to read, whether it's a spiritual or religious, or whatever it is that speaks to you. Figure out how to put those little pieces into your life and build that momentum. Brene Brown talks about the marble jar, and she talks about it in terms of relationships with others, that like the marble jar is a metaphor for building trust in a relationship. And so every time someone does something small or big that allows you to trust them more, you put another marble in the jar. I've started to think about that in terms of creating self-trust. How do I, every time I do something to show up for myself, I put another marble in my jar to remind myself that I'm here for me. I'm going to stand up for myself. I'm going to show up. I'm going to do the work. And it's a big jar and the marbles are small, and it's going to take a lot of time, and that's okay. That's my journey, as long as I'm moving forward. And so I think like that's really important when you're starting out. It's just little steps. That's all you need, as long as you're moving forward. Glennon Doyle has an amazing poem about, I can't even like come on, but it's basically about like, wherever you are, that's okay. Just keep moving. If you have to crawl, just keep moving forward. It's all good.
Love that.
So.
Absolutely. That's great. I so appreciate all the participation here. This is absolutely fantastic. I am going to ask a favor for those of you that recommended any sort of book, any sort of audio, any sort of podcast. If you could do me a favor and place them underneath in the comments, just so people, have an idea of how to spell it and what it is. because this is all about educating and pushing forward. So I would so appreciate that from my ladies. I do want to also add to that, you know, since we are on the subject of mental and emotional health, my yes girl that I was talking about, that goes along with when you start doing things and implementing things that we just talked about over the last 2 hours. So, you know, when you do a good job of diffusing something, when you do a good job of changing a disempowering, you know, thought to an empowering thought, when you mentally, you know, can walk away from an argument, when you can, you know, really start to set boundaries for yourself, again, do the same exact thing with yourself and give yourself a yes girl for helping yourself mentally, emotionally, and really being there for your self-care and giving yourself grace in those situations. So I so appreciate, thank you, girl. I appreciate that. I so appreciate everyone being here. This was absolutely fantastic. Amazing questions as always. I so appreciate everyone's participation and all of the awesome goodies that you guys gave. Anybody who wants to place your information in any of these comments underneath, please feel free. For those of you that are still watching, we still have so many people watching. I so appreciate you being here, your participation, the comments, the questions. This has been absolutely great. And I am so appreciative to the foundation that we're creating here for women to be able to bounce ideas and bounce thoughts off of each other so that we can rise above, so that we can really start
making a difference.
Thank you. Making a difference. So thank you so much for joining us here on Her Version. If you have an amazing story to share of struggle to triumph, be sure to reach out to me here or at herversion.life. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria, and I'm so grateful to be here sharing a platform that allows people to share their truth and inspire others. Do something awesome today. Much love.